Hello, and welcome again to the Executive Room podcast, where we delve deep into the minds of remarkable executives who have shaped the business world with their ideas and actions. I'm your host, Kimberly Afonso, CEO and founder of the KA Consulting Group, where we are experts in everything related to CEO visibility. And today it's an honor to have Charles Bender join us. Charles, aka Chuck Bender, is the CEO of Skynet Broadband and Attentus Technologies. He champions connectivity and IT excellence in underserved and enterprise markets alike. He's a U.S. Navy veteran turned entrepreneur. He launched Skynet in 2003 to bring reliable broadband to rural communities and later evolved into telephony and managed services. With Attentus, he now leads a proactive, security-first IT platform that empowers businesses to lead and scale with confidence. He's a long-term member of AO Entrepreneurs Organization and an advocate for ending generational poverty. So we'll be talking about that today as well. So that is really, the start, Chuck. So I'd love to thank you for being here. And I'd love to start with your journey, Navy veteran entrepreneur. You have a mission to end generational poverty. What brought you to start your business? How did you get started? And tell us a little bit about your background.
All right. So thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to be here. Hopefully I can offer something that helps somebody somewhere. So my background's really, there's no straight line. I think the one thing that I had in my mind when I got out of the service was I wanted to build a life that I wasn't able to have growing up for my children. I wanted to try to solve problems in the world as I saw them. And I just wanted to be able to live a life bigger than anything that I had imagined up to that point. So that was really my prerequisite. I wanted to, take on the world and see how much I could squeeze out of the limited amount of minutes that we all get in this thing called life. The I It's kind of interesting. So I started the internet business because I moved out to a place that didn't have high-speed internet. And I'd had another business that was a national franchisor in the dating service industry, actually. That's a whole other conversation. And I moved to the country to have a place where my kids could run around on our property and never leave it and not have to worry about getting hit by a car or, all the things that keep parents awake at night. And basically, I couldn't get internet at my house. I was promised I could get it by a couple guys. And when I bought the house and invested a whole bunch of money, they showed up after the fact and said, well, we really can't get the internet there because of this, that, and the other thing. And this is in the early 90s. No, early 2000s, rather. It's like 2002. And essentially what they did was they said, well, we can put this thing called a T1 in your house, which I'd never heard of before, and maybe put an antenna on your roof. And then if your neighbors buy internet from us, we can offset the cost of the T1 so it won't cost you $1,000 a month. It'll cost a lot less. And I'm like, all right, well, let's do it, because I need internet. I was running my other business using a homemade CRM we had built to manage kind of all of the aspects of the business. And that's where it started. And I quickly realized that these guys had a lot of ambition, but not a lot of experience running a business, and not a lot of capital to build in a capital-intensive business. And I elected to partner with them out of the gate and run with it. Now, one of those partners went on to go work at Microsoft and has built a massive career at Microsoft. He's a great guy, one of the smartest people I know. And the other one, he and I parted ways because of some personal reasons I won't get into here. But suddenly I found myself in the owning an IT business or a business that had technology, and I needed to know how to do it. So I essentially went to school at night to figure out how to do the network engineering, figure out all that other stuff, while during the day I was trying to figure out how to do this stuff. So really, it just turned out to be a good timing situation where we were the first broadband provider for our community and the areas around us, and the it was a wireless ISP, or still is. I still own Skynet, and we still have a lot of clients on our platform. But we were the only provider at that time, so we were just figuring it out as we went and set it up and provided great service as best we could afford, and that's how it got started. So the current company I have actually sprung out of that, because when you're in a rural community and you're trying to start a company, any way to make a dollar, you just said yes to it if it was related at all to what you did. So at the time when the wireless technology was in its infancy, so if somebody got a virus on their personal computer, it would take out the internet for everybody that was off the same access point. So we were just fixing those things to keep the internet running, and then pretty soon we were fixing servers, and then businesses wanted us to do their stuff, and so we just kept going with it. And then one day I woke up and I had two different businesses entirely, both doing a lot of revenue. And yeah, that's how that was kind of where it started and led into where I am today, interestingly enough.
Wow. Well, congrats on, such an amazing journey, especially in how you got started. What a funny story of, needing the product, being the person that has the need, and then adding on to that. So tell us, how is it to be the owner of two companies? So there is some overlap, but how have you found that? Has that always been something easy? Do you have any advice for other, we have a lot of entrepreneurs who are listeners, anything that you tell them who maybe have one business but are thinking about having another?
Don't do it. Um, I, so I will say, probably the biggest challenge I've had as a leader is, oftentimes I felt like I was trying to ride two skateboards, right? And unless you have incredible balance, you hit a bump on one skateboard wants to go this way, and the other skateboard wants to go that way, and oftentimes you're left in uncomfortable positions where you feel like a failure every day, right? There are days where you just feel like there's only so much of me to go around, and that was the way it was early in this process. But I've been super blessed, and this is the thing I think that I learned the most in being able to manage multiple things and still take on volunteer work and be a parent and all those things. But it's all about the people. It's about the team you put on the field, right? And I'm a big I manage to outcomes. I'm not a micromanager. So I look for people who are very responsible and are willing to take responsibility for the whole organizational unit, and have them manage the day-to-day operations of those organizational units. If I tried to micromanage things, there's just no way we would be able to grow and scale in the way that we've grown and scaled. So the real question is, if you're going to start two businesses and you're both of them, and you don't have a great team in place, I would suggest not doing it. Mostly because there's only so much and your energy is going to naturally go to what's putting food on the table. So whatever's not putting the most food on the table is going to not get your attention. And I think being honest with ourselves about that is really important. You know, that being honest is probably the most important. Um, Entrepreneurs tend to think that we have limitless capability, and oftentimes we have more capability than a lot of the people we know, but focus causes scale more than width. It's better to go deep than it is to be wide.
Very, very well said. And what a great lesson. Don't bite off more than you can chew is, something that came to mind as you were speaking as well for me personally. So I'd love to hear, Chuck, from, you're in IT, in infrastructure. You've talked in the past about AI not replacing people, but slowing the need to hire more. What does that look like in practice, especially in IT services?
It's a great question. I believe that 5 years from now, 60, 70, perhaps even 80% of all IT support related issues will not require a human.
Mhm.
The and the truth is somebody who's going to build that tool and try to put me out of business. But I'm a human centric business, and my goal has always been to provide a lifestyle for our team so they can have their dreams be met, so they can go out in the world and build families and careers and those types of things. And I'm kind of fearful a little bit of how that shows up in our society if we have a lot of people who don't value that, if they're just purely bottom line driven. So from my business perspective, we're in the people business. Um, our number one core value is deliver or to build trusted relationships. And it's very difficult to have a trusted relationship with a machine, right? So when you go to Google us and you see our 5-star reviews, they're naming people in those reviews, not process. Stephanie helped me with this, or Sean helped me with this. Dan, the companies name themselves. So I mean, they literally, it's people. And I don't think there's ever going to be, I hope that there's never a replacement for that where the machine is interfering with the relationship. Where I believe most companies that I know and where our effort is to use the AI tools to enhance the customer experience, but not to replace the relationship with the customer. And I think that's how I distinguish the two. That doesn't mean that there isn't some things that we can automate and make faster for the customer. That's enhancing the customer experience. But people want to feel like they know somebody. They want to feel connected, and in our world, those connections are becoming rarer, more rare, right? So for us, there's AI enablement, and we're pushing it everywhere. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big advocate for using it where it's appropriate. And I think a lot of times people confuse AI with workflows, and workflow automation is not AI. Um, it's a workflow that's being automated. AI will help you build it. It'll help you write it faster. It makes it accessible to the masses, but it's not AI, right? Um, so our team is AI empowered. We want our team to look at it like their personal assistant that knows everything there is to know, but has zero EQ about anything, right? So how do we frame it? How do we utilize it so it's supporting their efforts? How do we make their jobs easier? And we've seen a lot of efficiency gain where we're able to take our team and elevate what they're doing for the customer into the things that they do best. That avoids where AI can't really replace them. I know it's a long answer to the question, but it's an important question, and I think a lot of organizations are grappling with it. I think cultures are grappling with it.
Oh, definitely. And how do you stay positive about all of the gains from AI? Because, you mentioned yourself there are some dangerous things to think about. How will it affect society, especially when you're leading a people first organization? So, how do you stay positive about that? And also, how much do you think AI will replace? I think you gave, a great example of the EQ. That's something that I really believe in too and have seen in my business. Like people remember the people, they need the EQ. But where do you think overall, where would you say we're going in your field in IT services? You mentioned a lot of this is going to get certain things will be replaced by AI. Love to hear some of your perspective on that.
Um, so I think in my business, and I think in businesses everywhere, it's. I'll give you an example in government, right? If you think about um, regulatory um, standards and you have applications against a regulatory standard. Right now in a permitting process, you have to submit a permit, and then a human looks at the permit, and then they're reading the permit to make sure it meets the requirements for that city's laws, and then they're signing off on it or they're asking questions, right? 100% of that can go to AI, right? Now, if I'm a construction person, I love that because I can submit a permit, and if it's within the standard, I can get my permit in 10 minutes and go build a house, right? I can get to work on it. It doesn't take 6 months. It doesn't take a year. It doesn't take all this time. So I think that where IT is concerned, like if you want a password change, does a person need to be involved in that? Do you need to have a conversation about the kids? Or do you just want your password changed, right? So I think in IT, those are the kinds of things where we're automating. We're building automations to quickly help customers do that. And they're getting more sophisticated. If you add a new employee now, it's almost a button push, and we can create all of the security, all of the requirements, all of their Office 365 license, and pull the license, apply it to them, set up their Intune, and almost set up their computer instantly. All right. But there's always 5% of that requires some personal touch, right? So what we're able to do is pass along savings to our client because it doesn't take 4 hours to do something that takes an hour to do now. And it saves them money, but they still get the personal touch. So I think really that's the direction in IT. A lot of the issues that we deal with, that most users deal with on a regular basis, are things that don't they're relatively simple for a process to handle. But when they're frustrated, talking to a machine just makes them more frustrated,
Oh, definitely. I've had
right?
that experience myself.
So our belief is that we want to make sure the human is dealing with the human element of it, and then our AI is sitting in the background. So once the human understands what the problem is, we can quickly hit the button and get the thing resolved as fast as possible. So that's kind of where we're blending the two. Is to get some efficiency gain in the turnaround time for issues for our clients, but not at the expense of I'm feeling really frustrated and someone saying, "Hey, I hear you. We're going to get to the bottom of your problem as quickly as possible, and I promise we'll get you back to what's important to you as soon as it's possibly able to be done." There's nothing that sets a customer more at ease than having somebody who just says, "I have you. I got you." And it's going to be very difficult to do that with a machine with any heart.
So I love that you are involved with Entrepreneurs Organization, Chuck. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are aware of EO, as so many are C-suite executives, CEOs, founders. So what's one principle from EO that's shaped how you lead or mentor others? And can you share with us some of your experience being in the organization for so long?
Wow, yeah, that's a broad question. So there's so many things I've learned from being in EO. First of all, I learned that I wasn't alone. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, you're carrying the weight of the stress of your business, trying to succeed. You're protecting your friends and family from that stress often. Um, we're a little crazy. I mean, entrepreneurs,
Yes.
we're a little nuts, right? We're doing something that is counter to what most people do, and most people don't understand it. I can't tell you how many times I heard over the years, why don't you just get a job? Your life would be so easy if you just did this or just did that. So we hear this like tug on our heart. So EO really was ironically, probably the first time that I experienced what it's like to be fully understood and accepted for being an entrepreneur, for being somebody who dreams a little bigger than what my wallet says is capable of having today, right? Um, and I think that's probably the first thing. I think the second thing for me is there's a communication protocol in EO. They call it the forum mindset now, but it used to be called Gestalt. But essentially, um, it's how to communicate without giving advice, right? I think when you're communicating with others, oftentimes we like to stand on our pedestal and we talk about how good we are and what we do and what we know that you don't. And it creates a power differential between people instead of meeting as peers. So in EO we use experience share. So somebody says, And you'll probably find this with me during this conversation. It's just so natural for me after 25 years in the organization. But someone will ask for advice, and I'll say, well, here's the time when I experienced what you were talking about, and here's the challenges I went through, and kind of trying to come up with a decision, and here's why I made the choice I made. It may not be the right choice for you, but this is how I did it, right? I think that creates this opportunity to be known and an intimacy beyond here's the answer. And I think the intimacy that you get from the vulnerability of saying, hey, listen, I went through this, I made this choice, and I totally screwed it up. I mean, I made a mistake by doing this. That's why when you were asking me about, what do I think if somebody wants to have two businesses, I was like, yeah, I would probably avoid it, right? Here's why. But here's how it's been successful for me, and this is how. This is the only way I could do it. Other people are maybe more talented or better or whatever, but the way I could do it was just people, right? But I think those are things. I think a principle when I speak on an EO stage, I often share this concept, but it's one of my favorite quotes, and it goes like this: that a smart person will make a mistake, learn from it, and hopefully never make that mistake again. But the wise person surrounds themselves with smart people in hopes of avoiding the mistakes altogether. In my lifetime, I've been a very smart person. I've made a lot of mistakes and learned from them. EO has helped me be more wise because I can learn and benefit from the mistakes other people have made. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've gotten from EO. Personally, both in my family, how to be a parent, how to be a father, how to be a husband, how to be a human being, how to be a business owner, how to be a leader. It pretty much touches every aspect of my life.
Incredible, and incredible to hear how much overlap there's been. I hear that and I see that myself. It's anything with professional development, even if it's meant for one area, it ends up, improving every area. And that's something I've heard about EO myself. So, really great to hear from your experience with it. And, this podcast, Chuck, is always about vocal leadership, and you are a very vocal leader. I love your newsletter on the Bender. Super funny, cool naming. And tell us a little bit about your presence. How and when did you decide to be more in the spotlight? What has it served your business? Is it something that's always come easy to you? And what advice would you have for other CEOs or founders who are looking to be more visible?
So, I found that people do business with people they like. I'm sure you've heard that. And I do feel that these other ways of communicating and sharing ideas give an insight into who I am, right? And it helps people know whether they're going to like you or they understand you. So I think when you find your voice out there, most of the time we're heads down trying to solve the problem of the day. But I will tell you that new revenue and sales also help solve lots of problems, right? So if you're out there and you're building a brand, for lack of a better word, and I feel like building a brand sometimes feels very pretentious, right? But the reality is we all have a brand. Everybody has a brand. It's just, is it intentional or is it just unintentional? Is it just is it a reaction to what you're doing every day? Now, the authentic brand is literally your character reflected in the public. That's what to me an authentic brand is. My character is I'm a little contrarian. I love to laugh. I think laughter creates space for any number of things, and the person I laugh the most about is myself, right? So I find that there's and the things I find funny often resonate with other people, right? We all have, I think we can take ourselves a little too seriously. So for me, when I wanted to step out, the whole idea of on a bender, leadership with a twist, is to take kind of a funny, maybe slightly contrarian approach to the assumptions that people have about leadership. And there are a lot of assumptions we bring to the table that no one challenges. I'm kind of a contrarian. I like to challenge the status quo. So that's part of why I did the newsletter the way I do it. And it's an authentic way of just maybe expressing an opinion or sharing my experience that I hope some people can find valuable. Um, from a business standpoint, all of that content, everything you do, everything you put out there, is it going to be a reflection on your business when you're the CEO? So when you're the CEO of something, people they're trying to understand, they're trying to separate the BS from the authentic business. Is it real or is it aspirational? That's a question we all ask of our vendors, right? Everybody makes lots of promises. Um, the reality is I think all businesses are learning as they go, and they're at various levels of this learning. And when you can put out the lessons you've learned already, and you're continuing to learn, people will gravitate towards you as being authentic, and not so we're all aspirational in some way, one way, shape, or another. But it definitely helps the client know you, and if your content is tailored towards what your business is, they're going to also know that you know what you're doing. And those are really the two things: that they like you and you know what you're doing, and you're offering a fair service at a fair price. A lot of people will want to do business with you.
Definitely. And I think, you said it so well. People know, like, trust, and that's what a lot of this content does. Has there been any of your newsletters or content that really, was really picked up, or that you got a lot of comments on, or that you've had customers or colleagues comment on? And if so, what was the topic?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure I know which one probably had the most comments on it. Um, I think I think largely I think the things that people have the most comments on are the ones where there's just an authentic share of what's going on with you. Um, Honestly, I think the areas where I've had the most comments was after my father passed, and just kind of learns that what I learned through that process, and um, and just what it means to just be a human being. I think there's tailored content all over the place, right? And when you stumble across somebody who's actually going through something or has gone through something, and they're sharing something that really matters, it stands out. It stands out a lot. We put out a lot of stuff on cyber security and cyber liability insurance and all this stuff, and it's all very business cultured stuff. Frankly, boring as hell for me, right? It's not. It's out there. If somebody wants to look us up and find out about cyber liability insurance, or find not insurance but liability in general, like cyber protection and security. Um, it'll validate that we know what we're doing about cybersecurity. But what's going to tell you who I am is like reading a post about when my dad died, and what it did in my siblings, and how we all had different relationships with them, and what that meant, and how I got to know my dad through their lens when we were talking about it. It was a different man than I knew, right? So it's just, those are really authentic moments. And I think as leaders, um, it's okay to put that stuff into the world, because that's where people are going to like you. That's what makes them like you. There's an interesting fact I ran into, because my internet business early in the day, like, it was new technology, and it was not very well done new technology, and we'd have a lot of challenges, and customers would have issues, and this is 20 years ago, 25, 20 years, 15, 20 years ago. It's so much better today than it ever was. But you know what I've discovered along the way is that when they had a problem, we didn't hide from it. We just addressed it squarely. We addressed what we learned from the problem. We addressed what we were doing about the problem. And then we went over above, helping our clients navigate the problem and getting through them. The problems gave us the opportunity to reveal our character. Our character is what turned them into raving fans. So I'm not advocating for having problems, but I will advocate that when you do, how you respond is going to be the difference between someone loving your business, you as a leader, and somebody going all out negative on you publicly everywhere. And I promise you, if it's about money and you're making the bad choice instead of about what's doing right, um, you deserve to take the heat, you know. But if you do what's right every time, the people just fall in love with you. So I think my goal is always trying to do what's right by our clients whenever there's a situation. Don't make it about money. Make it about doing the right thing.
Completely. And that is such a great insight because that's, in my experience, has been true as well. And it's when you really are able to show your company values. When something goes wrong, something that I've seen myself is when something has gone wrong, that's when the company values really come out because, I say our company values, for example, are integrity, trust, transparency. Can't you're never tested to really live your company values until something goes wrong, but those are really great opportunities to show that. So that's such a great insight to hear also from your experience. And I'd love to end, Chuck, on a more personal note. You've mentioned you're a student of AI. What are you curious about these days? Is it new tech? Is it AI? Are there projects you're diving into? Tell us about that.
So I think everybody is a student of AI. It's changing so quickly and so rapidly in how we deal with it and interact with it. If you claim to be an expert, you're going to be an expert of what happened 3 weeks ago or 6 months ago, not what's happening today. Um, but I think what I would say is I'm always curious. I really am curious about people. I'm curious about how the brain works. I'm curious about how we engage with content. We live in a world today where it's really, really hard to get to the truth, right? We have spin from everywhere we look, especially from our leaders, our politicians. We don't know, what's true. Everything is broken down into a perspective of relative truth, but it's not actually truth. It's an indictment of somebody, the other side, regardless of what side you're on. So what I want to know is I really want to understand how people think, how they operate, how we can influence them to operate at a higher level. All there's a lot of things that are entering our lives and our feeds and our social media everywhere that's trying to influence or dictate us to go one way or another around different issues. And I think the mean happiness level is way down because people haven't really developed a good framework for evaluating things for themselves, right? So how do I determine this or determine that? So I think that that's a big part of it. AI for me is like magic. I mean, I tell you what, I'm 58 years old, and I've lived through cell phones. I've lived through the rise of the internet. All of them were felt magical, But in my lifetime, there's a couple of things that have caused me to feel wonder. My children being born, the strength of my wife having children. Oh my gosh, like there's nothing that's brought me to my knees in terms of like seeing a miracle. And the other is travel. At this point in my life, I go around the world and I see what people have been able to do and create, and I'm always in awe. I feel awe of that. I feel awe and wonder. And so I think right now I'm just drinking it in through a fire hose, trying to best feel or understand how to be a leader with this changing landscape, um, how to ensure that the world is a place that my children can still have the same advantages and opportunities that I've been able to have, how AI is going to impact that, how I can put my thumb on the scale one way or another on those types of things. Um, I think of generational poverty, kind of circle back to that. I grew up really pretty poor, and I had one goal, and it was to end generational poverty for my family. But what I've seen, and this is maybe you might resonate for a lot of entrepreneurs in your audience, is that entrepreneurship is a great leveler. You don't really have to, it doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what your story, your narrative was. What matters is can you add value to other human beings on a regular basis? And I think your wealth is really how much value, how many people have the problem you can solve and the size of the problem, where those two intersect is the size of your opportunity or your TAM. Let's use a MBA language here, but the reality is if it doesn't matter what you came from, if you're adding value to other human beings, you're willing to hustle, you can change your life, your children's lives, the directional future, and it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your race is. It doesn't matter what your sex is. It doesn't matter. None of those things matter. What matter is am I solving a problem for people who have real problems? And if you go do that, you can have the most amazing life possible. I literally wake up every day, every single day, and think to myself, I could never even dream. I couldn't dream of the life I'm living today when I was 18. I couldn't dream it. I couldn't dream big enough. I mean, my dreams were 15 years ago or 20 years ago dreams as being the pinnacle of possibility. And I think that's a unique thing that we have in our country, like the ability to go start a business and build something. I think AI makes it easier to do for a lot of people. And just remember, keep people at the center of whatever you're doing, and you're going to do well anyway.
Completely. Well, what a great place to end. Thank you for sharing that, Chuck. Amazing, inspiring story. Thank you for being with us today, and until next time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.